Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA manufacturers highlights at Sardegna C in the reverse layout. We're driving the Ferrari Group 3 car, and yeah, this was a standing start. So qualifying was okay. The first race of the day we actually did a really good job in qualifying, but was a bit rusty in race trim. This I think was the second or third race. I think it was actually the second race that we entered, so we only did 2 races. We managed to qualify ourselves, I think, in P6. We'll just take a look in a minute as we go through the grid. Yeah, we're there in P6, just behind the NSX there that we're going to come to now, driven by Sparks. This was a very competitive lobby, and we're starting there in P6. So yeah, Ferrari off the standing start was one of the strongest cars at this track. So let's see what happened at the start. Now, I knew that the Ferrari was obviously going to be very, very strong here, and we knew the Renault was going to be very slow. So straight away, we were ready to get out of the way of that Renault. So watch as we go off the start. I instantly go to the right-hand side because I know that he's going to get a very poor start. This puts us down the middle. We get past Will, who also gets a pretty poor start in the Supra. Supra not very good off the standing start. And we managed to get ourselves up to P3. We're going to try and go around the outside here just to give the cars on the inside a bit of space. And we've got Sparks on the right-hand side also, but we've got the advantage. So he backs out there, tucks in behind us, and he's just going to go single file through this section of track. Now, this track was actually quite enjoyable. It wasn't the hardest track, especially to stay in slipstream wasn't the most difficult. Once you got your rhythm going on this track, you tended to find it pretty easy to stay with a car. Now, this was our second race. We didn't do slot 1. I think we missed slot 1 of the day because it was on very early. And we did slot 2, did a really good qualifying in slot 2. However, in slot 3, we didn't do as good qualifying, but we're now up to P3 because of the Ferrari's amazing start. You can see there, Sparks giving us a little bump draft on the exit there. I think he's going to go for a move. I've seen in the mirror there that we had the Supra looking to go for a move on Sparks, so I knew that Sparks was possibly going to send it into this corner. We brake as late as we can. We actually go into the back of digits slightly there and actually bump draft him a bit. It doesn't seem like he actually lost too much on that there actually, because it seemed to boost him forward. Maybe a bit of lag involved with that because his connection wasn't perfect, as you can see on the top there. But yeah, we're still behind that Viper. We've got the Supra now behind us, who's managed to get himself through a position there ahead of the NSX. And you can see just how close this race was. Very, very close racing. It was pretty much bumper to bumper behind. So you can see the Lamborghini at the front managing to break away. The Lamborghini was so strong at this track, and it was pretty much impossible to stay with that car. If you got in its slipstream, it would be possible to stay with. But yeah, and also Agu driving insanely well in that Lamborghini, has to be said also. Not just the car, Agu driving incredibly well to get himself that far out in the lead already. We're going to go for a move on the Viper there into the braking zone, you see. Doing a nice little move on the inside and working our way through the corner. You see almost losing the rear on the exit there where we're trying to put the power down, and that was a thing you had to be careful of with the Ferrari. That was something I did really want to avoid, but at this point I don't want to be in the group of cars because it's very easy to get caught up in an incident. So at this stage it was better to be ahead. You can see Will sending it up the inside of Digit behind us in the Supra, and this is why we wanted to be at the front really and just not involved with any of that, because it could all instantly end with a bit of chaos. So at this point in the race, just trying to stay out at the front in P2. We're actually at this stage holding pretty close pace to the Lamborghini. I did obviously benefit a bit on the slipstream down the straight from Digit when we went for that move, and now we've got the Supra coming up behind us, but he's not going to be close enough there. Will's not going to go for the move there. He's not going to throw it from that far back. And now we take kind of a weird line through there, which again is going to put a little bit of tyre life on that rear left-hand tyre. And this was the problem with this first stint. I was probably driving it a little bit too aggressive on my first stint just to try and stay ahead of some of these cars, because I didn't want to get involved with the battling. You see Will there, not going to send it up into this corner. He knows probably that the Ferrari is very strong through that corner. And again, just trying to stay in P2 at the moment, but it looks like we're going to be under threat from the Supra on the main straight, because the Supra is quite a fast car, and then put it in a slipstream, it'll probably be able to drag past the Ferrari pretty comfortably. We got quite a good exit though off that corner there. You can see we're actually not really losing too much to Agu in P1, who's is absolutely flying in that Lamborghini though. We lost a tenth to him I think on that lap, and we're not going to battle Will here. I decided at this point, if we start battling through this corner, I'm probably going to lose time in more places, so I just let Will take that inside line. I'm going to tuck into his slipstream and now try and use his slipstream a bit to not fight it too much, because if we fight that inside line, defend, we're just going to lose time as well as Will, and cars behind will be closer. So it's trying to drive it tactically, trying to drive it with a bit of racecraft, and just trying to make sure we get as good as first stint as possible, because when the car was heavy, this was when it was quite difficult with the Ferrari. I found the second stint a lot easier to drive when the car got lighter with the Ferrari. It felt a little bit easier, especially this section here. On the heavy fuel, it felt a little bit iffy through there, especially getting on the power. You see we lost the rear again. Now the NSX is going to go down the right hand side, but we're going to go to the left because we know that Will obviously is on the left hand side, so we've got the slipstream to that Supra. Now the thing is, that NSX is back in the slipstream. You can see he's going to go for the move, so I try and go to the middle of the track, brake as late as I can. We've got to make sure we give space to Sparks. So Sparks does a very, very nice move there. A brilliant move by Sparks to put himself up into P3. The fact that he managed to hold that tight line and get on the power very early, that was an incredible move. So well done to Sparks for that move. And we just give him a little bump draft there because there was no point trying to overtake him, but we nearly actually run ourselves off the track. And as we look behind us there, I think it was Peppy went for a move on Digit. I don't think it was deliberate, it's just a little bit of a squeeze to the edge of the track and ended up knocking into the side of Peppy. No deliberate action there from Digit, it was just a bit of a racing incident. But Peppy out of this race there and into the wall, and pretty much he's going to be struggling to get himself back into a good position. So while that is all kicking off behind us, we're just going to try and stay in the slipstream. Now I was really struggling on these opening few laps to really get into a rhythm with the Ferrari. You can see we've nearly lost the slipstream to the NSX already. I was really not driving and concentrating 100%. I was just trying to stay away from all the fighting that was going on behind us. And yeah, at this point, we're not actually doing that great. You can see we nearly lost the slipstream. And then as we come through here, we take that weird line again, where we're putting too much wear on that rear left-hand tyre. And the tyre life was starting to fade quite drastically on that rear left. And it was starting to cause me a bit of traction issues. So I was getting very cautious when putting the power down. And I think that's why we've lost the slipstream here, because we just wasn't really being committed enough and keeping the car stable enough to, especially with this heavy fuel, to keep pace with them. So we're in P4, we've got Digit behind us, and that's one of the fastest cars, the Viper, in the straight line. So this is going to be very difficult to hold that Viper behind. So trying to get a nice, good entry and exit off that corner. We actually do that quite well that time. You can see, actually got that gap up to nearly half a second there. We did quite a solid entry and exit to the corner. As we're about to start lap 8 of this race at Sardegna C. And everything at the moment is going quite well. Although it's a lot of chaos, a lot of hectic driving, it's all about just trying to keep ourselves in the top 4 or 5 positions. Our aim for this race was top 6, I think it was. I think at the start of the race we said, if we get a top 6, that is us done, because it was over 300 points. I wanted like 310, something like that. So anything around there, I was going to be happy with for this combination. So as we come through this right hand corner, the Ferrari was actually quite strong on that right hand corner. It kind of suited it, but we run a little bit wide there. Again, that is not going to help the rear left tyre. You can actually see the rear left tyre is starting to fade drastically, and that is why we're starting to struggle, because we've driven it too hard on the heavy fuel. And one thing about the Ferrari is if you start spinning the tyres up too much early on in the race, it really does affect the tyre wear in the long run. So you have to be very, very careful with the Ferrari. It's something that we're going to learn as we do more and more races with this car, that we're going to have to be very gentle on the first few laps just to keep the tyres in good condition, because one little error in this car, it really does emphasize a tyre wear issue. If you keep the car very smooth, it can actually do reasonably okay and drive reasonably alright still. But yeah, one little error and it will really affect you. As Digit goes for a move on the left hand side, we manage to defend that, hold the inside and get on the power nice and early, and we actually get reasonable traction there and manage to hold on to P4 in this race at this point. And then as we're coming through this single file section here, I think Digit kind of gets a bit of understeer off the curb, possibly. You see there, gets a bit of understeer, and Antonio does an incredible move here, straight up the inside, and actually manages to hold that move. Really good move, driving the FT1 and pulling that move off there. So we've now got Antonio behind us. Now, I know that when Antonio's around us, he tends to have very, very good racecraft. So I was quite optimistic this would be good for us that Antonio is behind us now. His car isn't as fast on the straight also, so he's possibly going to be thinking of the long run. So as we're coming down the straight, you see I'm looking in the mirror and wondering, is he going to go for the move? And I was pretty confident he wouldn't do it, so he gives us a little bump draft there. And this is good, because now that we don't have to worry about being overtaken in the braking zones, we can just concentrate about just doing good laps. Managed to do that for a few laps, and we managed to pull away from the group behind us and actually got a bit of a gap up. So we went in the pits on lap 13 purely because our tyres were starting to be completely shot at this stage. They were not feeling very good at all. So out of the pits, and as we come out here, Joni goes a little bit late on the brakes. We take a tight line on the apex there. I think we might have squeezed him a little bit on the exit, but he did brake very late on the exit there onto the entry into the corner, and we did squeeze him slightly, but he just about managed to hold on to the car on the track, and we're up into P5 again. So We've got Sparks ahead of us, but Sparks was driving incredibly well here. He was really, really fast around this combination in that NSX. And we got Antonio behind us, who's trying to stay with us and probably going to be bump drafting us again. I didn't know really at this stage. It was about, we've got 17 laps to do in the Ferrari, which, as you know, the Ferrari wasn't the best car on tyre wear. So for me, it was probably better to be in the slipstream. However, I wanted to see what our pace was like, so we carried on in front. We've got Antomix not too far behind also in the BMW behind Antonio, so he was a bit too far back there to bump draft us, so just backed out into the braking zone. And again, trying to be smooth through here on the power, and we actually run a little bit wide there. I'm not sure if we actually got a little bit of a bump draft off Antonio there, but we actually went onto the curb, nearly lost control. Luckily we managed to regroup it, and Antonio gives us another bump draft, so we don't actually lose a massive amount. We probably lost 2-3 tenths there, nothing too drastic. So we've got to try and get this car back into a rhythm. Let's try and do some good lap times, because if we want to hold on to a P4 or P5, we're going to have to drive a lot better than what I am at the moment on this second stint, especially with it being the longest stint of 17 laps. So much better exit that time. And as we skip a little bit further on to lap 17, we drove quite well there. We did a 51.9 on our own with no slipstream. I decided to let Antonio go here. I could see him going down the right side. I was actually saying on stream, I think it was, that I want him to go past, because it will mean that I can save my tyres better. And also, it will mean that Antomix won't pick up the slipstream, because Antomix's pace was pretty similar to my pace at this combination. It wasn't too dissimilar. So now that Antonio's in front of us, we can just work together. I'm not going to battle him. There's no point fighting with him at this stage. The best thing for me to do in the Ferrari is purely just to look after these tyres, play it safe, follow him, and this is what we did for quite a few laps. We literally just stayed behind him, braking nice and early, keeping it nice and smooth, keeping the car stable, and just trying to get the car into the apex and on the power on the exit, and then working our way down the straight again to finish another lap. So yeah, we did this for quite a while. You can see on the replay camera how close it is between ourselves and Antomix behind us there. He's just outside the slipstream range, and at the moment that's good, because we're starting to pull away from him now that we've got Antonio in front of us. And another thing with the FT1 was the tyre wear is very good on that car, so I knew that while we're following him, his pace is going to be very strong all the way to the finish. So there was no point me battling this out with him too much. So we're just going to follow behind, be very cautious on the brakes. And one thing about being in the slipstream is you can just brake a little bit earlier at this type of track, because as long as you're in that slipstream, you're going to get such an advantage, because it's quite a power track this. And you're going to get such an advantage with the straights and the acceleration zones. You've just got to try and be very smooth through sections like this, braking nice and early, keeping the car under control, getting on the power nice and early, and working your way down to the finishing line. As again, you can see we've managed to stay within that half second. So this is just all about using racecraft. There's no point us fighting each other, battling with each other, losing time, because all that's going to do then is give Antomix our slipstream, and then any other cars behind him, if we carry on fighting, they might catch up. But if we work together like this, what happens is we pull away, we build the gap up to Antomix. You can see we've gained 2-3 tenths on Antomix on that 1 or 2 laps already. We're starting to build that gap up, and this was what I wanted to do, because worst comes to worst, we get a P5, and you never know, at the end we might be able to battle for a P4. It'll all come down to the end of the race. But at the moment, P5 I was very happy with for this combination. It was not my favourite track, but I actually did enjoy the flow of this track with the way it was quite high speed and trying to keep the Ferrari as stable as we could. It was quite enjoyable. But again, you can see Antonio really pushing. He's actually starting to, it looks like he's matching the pace of Sparks and Will Murdoch up front there in the Supra and the NSX. So we're not losing out to him. We actually look like we're closing in ever so slightly. You can see our lap times pretty consistent, another 51.9 there. And again, you can see we gained another 3 tenths to Antomix behind us, who has no slipstream, and obviously he can't really save his tyres. So it's going to be very interesting how this plans out as we go to the lap 27 now. We skip a lot further on because we basically drove that whole race just saving tyres, following behind Antonio, and we've built that gap up to Antomix to nearly 3 seconds now. And that really does show you how working with someone and using racecraft will help your race time, because now we've not got to worry about the car behind, and we're coming up to the last 3 laps. So if a battle does happen at the front between P2 and P3 and we catch up to it, we can afford to get involved with that battle on the final lap, because Antomix is now nearly 3 seconds behind us. And this is why I always say about, you know, racing smart. It will pay off if you do it more often than not. So we're behind Antonio now, just following him through here. Again, I didn't really want to battle. At this stage, I could see that Will Murdoch and Sparks were battling at the front there between P2 and P3. So I didn't really want to even try and do an overtake with Antonio at this point. I thought, let's just see if we can just get as close as we can to them. And if they make a mistake, one of them crashes or they both crash, we can be in a position to take advantage. Or if they get a penalty or something, we might be able to get a position to take advantage of it and gain a couple of positions or one position. So again, into the braking zone, just trying to be smooth on the throttle. Antonio makes a little bit of a mistake there. We're going to just run up behind him and give him a nice little bump draft up the straight there to help his pace and get him back up and put him back up to speed to see if we can get a little bit closer. We definitely have been catching P2 and P3 up because they've been going side by side through corners and battling out. You can see again, they are side by side in the distance there. You can see them going through the final corners almost side by side, and that is going to lose some time. And again, this is why we're working together with Antonio, because work together, get closer to them, and you never know what can happen in races like this. Again, nice and smooth on the exit as we're about to start the final lap. And again, I could have gone for a move here. I think Antonio expected me, so I just went to the left just to let him know I'm not going to go for a move, because if something happens at the front, I want to be in a position to take advantage. So I think if we would have fought that there, we wouldn't have been out anywhere near, and I probably would have come out worse anyway, because I think Antonio's tyres would be better than mine. You can see my rear left tyre is starting to struggle in now, so on traction zones, we was going to get a little bit tricky putting the power down. So through here, trying to stay as close as we can to Antonio, trying to keep it nice and smooth. And now this is where we're going to have to just try and get a good exit, because we can see that they are losing pace at the front, but they're not losing enough pace to battle. And Antonio makes a mistake, so now for the final few corners, we're going to battle this out and see if we can get that P4. So we try and take a nice line through here. Antonio's a little bit defensive. That's going to give me the run on him now. Out the exit of this corner, we get a nice solid exit, a little bit of oversteer, which costs us a fraction of time. Onto the power, picking up the slipstream. We're going to go to the left-hand side of the track, and as we go to the finishing line, this is going to be a photo finish. And unfortunately, we didn't get that position. It was oh so close. Just look at that on the delta there. A really close race and an enjoyable race with Antonio, but we come away with a P5. But P5 and 347 points, 346 points in that race. So I was pretty happy with that. And that is a good result for ourselves driving the Ferrari. So yeah, the racecraft definitely helped us there. Working with Antonio, pulled us away from anyone battling, and we got a nice, comfortable 346 points. And I hope you lot enjoyed that video. Remember, if you did enjoy that FIA highlights video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back with more live streams and videos to catch up on FIA and other videos in the future. Thanks again for watching, everyone.